It's becoming the unofficial state motto of Massachusetts. You can't get there from here, at least in any reasonable amount of time. The latest transit disaster came yesterday morning for thousands of morning rush Green Line passengers who were stranded when an insulator around wiring failed and a power outage shut down much of the service. Some had to evacuate through tunnels, while others faced lengthy waits for a handful of shuttle buses to come pick them up.
It's super inconvenient, and it's the train, so you know what's going to happen, whether the weather's good or bad, regardless.
I asked the conductor, is there a problem? She said she didn't know of one. How could she not know of one? How could the team not know that there's a problem? Somebody should be held responsible for this stuff.
As those passengers said, it's far from the first problem the aging MBTA system has seen lately. In February, a derailment forced part of the Red Line to be shut down at rush hour. And a question I posed today on Twitter about recent transit experiences caused an avalanche of not-so-happy feedback. Some examples. Orange and Red have unpredictable issues that never seem to get completely fixed. Silver Line from South Station to the airport is 25 minutes for no reasons other than poor planning and worse execution. The commuter rail just barely works. Short sets, mechanical breakdowns, and other things which should just be glitches become commute-ruining meltdowns. Little improvement since the winter of 2015. Constant shuttle busing due to construction and terrible schedules, especially Sundays. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. Earlier today, I caught up with Mass Transportation Secretary Stephanie Pollack to talk about the latest problems.
First, I'd apologize to any of our customers who were caught in the mess. I've been caught in some of those myself as a regular rider of both commuter rail and the Green Line. And it's the unfortunate consequence of the fact that there's just a big backlog of repairs from a lot of years when too much maintenance got deferred. But a lot of that work is being done now.
But are those promises enough? Joining me to weigh in are former Mass Secretary of Transportation Jim Aloisi, who served under Deval Patrick. He's now a contributor to Commonwealth Magazine and a founding partner of Pemberton Square Group. Brendan Halpin, an MBTA rider who challenged Governor Baker and other politicians to take the T pledge and ride public transit to work for 5 days in a row, and Charlie Chieppo, senior fellow at the Pioneer Institute and former policy director for Governor Mitt Romney. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks.
Jim, let me start with you. As someone who once had the job that Secretary Pollack now has, what did you make of her response?
It's a genuine response. It's a tough job. It's hard for me to be critical of the Secretary personally because I know what the job is like, and it's a pretty thankless one. The reality is it should be no news to anybody that the T doesn't behave the way we want it to behave because we've disinvested in it for so long. We're just playing catch-up right now, and the MBTA and the Fiscal Management Control Board and the Secretary have ramped up some spending, but they need to do a lot more, in my view. The issue is really one of resources. The T can't do more work if it doesn't have the resources to put the work out. If you look at how the T has handled the Green Line extension, they knew they needed to bring in additional resources and pay those resources to get the job done. The same approach, in my view, needs to be taken to state of good repair. And it's not just about money. I want to make a point. There are things that you can do at no cost, like allow the Silver Line bus to go down the ramp at D Street. That would solve the person who tweeted about the Silver Line.
Yeah, and just for viewers who might not be familiar with this, why can't the Silver Line bus do that right now?
Because the state police use it, and the state police won't relinquish its use. And that ramp was built for Silver Line use. It should be put into use. You can improve people's rides tomorrow at zero cost.
Give me one more zero-cost thing that could be done.
You could do you could do a pilot of VMT, of a new way of raising revenue. It wouldn't cost much to do it. Asking people to volunteer to test out how to do a system of charging people by the mile.
Oh, okay.
This administration wouldn't take federal money to do it, but it's a very low-cost thing. Low-cost solutions, build the red to blue connector. That's not a no-cost, but it's a reasonably low-cost way to improve mobility on two critical lines in the system.
I want to get these guys in here, but wouldn't that be pretty expensive? A couple $1 billion, or am I wrong?
No. It should be that. To do that right with a cut and cover, I think it's under $1 billion.
Okay. Charlie Chieppo, can you point to a couple ways in which the T is currently working clearly better or more efficiently than it did 2 or 3 years ago? Anything spring to mind?
Yeah, I mean, it is, but what I would say is that you're not really going to see it. In other words, this agency was allowed to get to such a complete state of disrepair that, the amazing thing about 2015 was not that the whole thing collapsed, but that it didn't collapse before then. And So what you're seeing is a lot of investments that have been made in the last few years that's going to take time before you see the benefit of. You're going to start to see it next year when you get the new red line cars and the new orange line cars and then the new fare collection system. That's when the average rider is going to see the benefits of what's been done. But unfortunately, we are in for a very long-term process here to fix this system.
So when you talk about how, and this I think is something that pretty much all parties agree on, there's a repair backlog totaling what? Is it in the billions?
7.3 billion.
That's a lot of repair that hasn't been done.
Yep.
Everyone agrees on that number. In addition to the investments that are going to be made in the years coming up, which we're going to talk about more in a bit, is there anything that you see working better right now, just in terms of, say, train reliability, for example? The Green Line, as a rule, is running better than it used to,
Yep.
or are we not quite there yet?
Well, I think there are some small improvements in terms of trains, buses, but I don't think the big stuff has hit yet.
Okay. Brendan Halpin, I want to turn to you finally. You're an Orange Line rider,
Yes.
right? And it was your frustration with your travels on the Orange Line that made you launch this Take the Pledge campaign?
Yeah, that's right. I have an early morning class. I'm a teacher at a variety of places. I had an early morning class at Bunker Hill, and then I had a later morning class downtown. And so it's 3 stops. It should be a relatively easy ride on the Orange Line. But what I found was that Orange Line trains were running so far apart that I was unable to board at community college. I would stand there and wait 2-3 trains until I could get one that actually had space enough for me to wedge myself in so that I could get to my next class. And it's a problem.
So you launched that about 6 months ago, right? Was it
in January, yeah.
In January, okay. I want to ask you about something that the governor recently told WBUR. I think this was last week. He outlined his vision for the T, and he described it this way. He said his vision is making the thing work, making it reliable and dependable enough so that somebody would get out of their car and take it because they believe it's going to get them where they need to go. Do you feel, 6 months after you launched the Take the T Pledge campaign, do you feel that way about the T? Do you feel like you can get out of your car and take it because it's going to get you where you need to go?
No, of course not. I mean, I've lived here for 25 years, and when I got here, the T used to work. You could just get on it and expect to be where you're supposed to be. And that's just not the case anymore. And it's really harming. I mean, I have it easy compared to people who work in retail who are getting docked when they're not at work on time through no fault of their own. People who work on point systems where you get fired if you're late a certain number of times. And like this kind of stuff is endemic, and it's very frustrating, which is why I launched the website. It's frustrating that no one seems to be taking it for the emergency that it really is.
Earlier this year, the governor explained why he has not become an avid T rider. This conversation he had with Jim and Marjorie, I believe, on Boston Public Radio. We caught it on video, so let's take a look at his rationale.
The governor's not a point-to-point person.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, every day I'm in. It's very rare that I go from one place to the same place more than once. And that makes it extremely hard to think about how to factor that in. And frankly, I really do believe that my job is to make sure that we make the T work for the people who need it to work, period.
I want all of you to weigh in on whether there are realities about the T and the way it's working right now that the governor would get in a fundamental way that he can't get as a non-rider. Let's start with
I'd start with the fact that that's just typical of how out of touch this governor is with the reality of his constituents. Is that does he think that everybody who rides a T has a point-to-point commute? Because lots of people work 2 or 3 jobs and need the T to get to both of them, all 3 of them, whatever. And his idea that the T should only work for the people who need it. We all need it. The entire metro area needs this system to work. We need it. Charlie Baker's friends need it so their employees can get to work. Like it's an essential part of the economy and just the quality of life of this region.
Charlie Chieppo, if the governor called you up or if you ran into him on the street and he said, what do you think? Should I maybe make a show of taking the T before we get to the election? Do you think he should be taking it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him that he's not in a position where he's going to take it every day.
Right.
But should he take it sometimes? Yes, he should, absolutely, because there's no substitute for actually experiencing it. Now, he should take it sometimes, absolutely.
Jim, are you going to make it 3 for 3 here?
No, I mean, look, no, I don't. You're not going to turn Charlie Baker into Mike Dukakis. I'd rather have a genuine governor who says I'm not going to take it. He's smart, though. I know Charlie Baker. He doesn't need to take the T. He's smart enough to know that the answer to the problem is to raise enough revenue, net new revenue, to hire the resources to get more work out. This is not anything that should be elusive or escape anybody.
But as you know, the governor has said that that's not the approach that he wants to take, right?
Well,
that he thinks the system can be reformed efficiently from the inside without putting new revenues on the table.
But that's a choice, and we should know. I can tell everyone loud and clearly that the reform before revenue approach gives you zero in return. You needed to reform, and we've done plenty of it. I was the secretary that passed one of the biggest reform bills in the history of the state. But you need to have net new revenue to invest in a system that's over 100 years old. And that's really what this is about. You've got a system that's been neglected, that's very, very old, that's handling millions and millions of people annually. And we need to ramp up investment, just like we did several years ago. We had an accelerated bridge program, right? We need to have an accelerated state of good repair program.
I want you two to hold on, for you in particular, for just 1 second. I want to play a little bit of what Stephanie Pollack had to say today about investment that she says is coming up and is going to go beyond what the Patrick administration did in its final years. Let's take a look.
For the 5 years prior to 2016, the T spent less than $3 billion total, and that included not just fixing the system, but expansion projects. For the 5 years that start on July 1st, the T will be spending over $8 billion.
That seems to me like an area where, even if you're not satisfied with the governor's stewardship of the T up until now, or don't think the system's progressed as much as it should have, the Baker administration deserves some credit for that, right?
I mean, I don't think they deserve
so?
a particular amount of credit. I guess, again, those of us who need the T to get around every day understand that the T is in a state of emergency. And that's really where I was coming from with the Take the T pledge. Like, I understand that's not going to transform Charlie Baker overnight, but I think it's critical that our elected representatives show some empathy with what the rest of us are going through.
Jim, sorry.
Yeah, no, just that and you know, it's an emergency. And no one's treating it as an emergency, and everybody who uses it every day knows this.
I think that you deserve credit. I think that they've made pretty much the right moves here. I think that they are doing the things that you need to do to fix it. Ultimately, I agree with Jim in the sense that I have proposed for a long time that we need to basically use tolling revenue and raise more tolling revenue and use it for the T. But the other piece of this is that the T is broken, and we have to reform that organization. We have to turn that into a public, into a consumer, a consumer-oriented organization.
Mean structurally it's broken?
It's so culturally broken. They are so inefficient at everything they do.
So if you had a chance to, by fiat, change the way the T is built so that it is no longer broken, what are the big changes you'd make structurally?
Well, the big thing I would look. I mean, we had a huge opportunity. Which just with this 3-year, exemption from the anti-privatization law, where we actually could have introduced a good deal of efficiency into the T. And the big
with the commuter rail, that's done great with the privatization.
Well, that's been privatized for a million years.
And look at the results. You want to do that to the subway?
Well, and if you look at the organizations that don't outsource their commuter rail, how do? They don't do very well at all. Not to mention the fact that you introduce a whole ton of legal, what are called 13C issues that would be disastrous for the T. That's a very complicated thing.
So you see that window closing. Give me one more big change that could be made.
The big thing was the bus maintenance. You know, to actually have it be an efficient bus maintenance system where the maintenance would have been better, we would have saved a ton of money. But once again, the sort of one-party political, contrary to any reason, sort of opposition to that was just off the charts.
Brendan, I see you wanting to get in here, but I think I owe him.
Yeah.
I apologize. I wish
good.
we had another 5 minutes for this one.
We're not going to reform our way into the modern 21st century transit system we want and that we deserve. We have to strategically raise new revenue and spend new revenue smartly. I think everyone knows it, including, look, Secretary's right. They are spending more money. I was a secretary in the prior administration. We weren't spending enough money. I'm not going to say that we were perfect. What I'm saying now, with the benefit of everything I know and all my experience in this area, and looking to the future as an advocate, the time is now. If we don't make this accelerated investment in the T, what's going to happen is that the MBTA soon enough is going to find more ridership being siphoned off.
Right. Well, it's already happening, I think, based on the amount of Lyft and Uber cars we see on the road every day.
We are at a point where the future of our economy is at stake, and that's really important for people to understand. This is not a trivial conversation. It's about the future of our economy.
Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. I want to mention Stephanie Pollack talked to us for about 5 minutes. We'll put the whole unedited interview so people can get more of her take online. I'll tweet it out also later today. Jim Aloisi, Brendan Halpin, Charlie Chieppo, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.